And it is time now to turn the clock back for just a minute. Um, so, a very cool event happened just last weekend as we're recording this. It was the annual Yorkie-thon benefit that Adam Green, the creator of the Hatchet franchise, um, and he does this every year. And they this is their ninth year, and it's to save the Yorkies, and it's a 3 day event, and they live stream it, and they auction off amazing items, and every year they do a script reading of either an unproduced film or a film that went through major changes from the version of the script that they read. And so this year in 2025, the live script reading was none other than Halloween Returns. Now, many of you might remember it was pretty much exactly 10 years ago, in fact, 1 decade ago, in the summer of 2015, when all of Haddonfield was abuzz because there was a new movie in development, and it was very, very close to going before cameras. It was called Halloween Returns. It was co-written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, to be directed by Marcus Dunstan. And then, just as we were expecting casting news to come out, and as in real life, behind the scenes, they were literally very close, like weeks from going before cameras. Our friend Douglas Tate has talked about it. He was very close to being cast as the man behind the mask. The Everything stopped. The project was canceled. The plug was pulled, and ultimately the franchise would leave Dimension Films soon after that. So, since then, lots of details about what could have been have surfaced. Even back then, there were all kinds of script details that were leaking and coming out, and rumors. And then there's been tons of stuff since then. And I know a lot of this script has been out there. Maybe all of it has been out there, and many of you might have read it before. But I never really read it. I have read certain descriptions of certain passages, certain scene descriptions here and there over the years, but never like read the script or anything like that. Didn't want to really. Um, but when I heard this was happening last weekend, I was like, well, this would be a very cool way to experience it. And so what they did was they had various actors, some of them friends of ours here, like Sarah Nicklin, who I just recently interviewed, and Damien Maffei from The Strangers Pray at Night, who we've also interviewed here. They were both there. It was directed by Dave Parker, who has done a lot of cool projects over the years. My favorite being his segment in Tales of Halloween. Um, and it was a very entertaining, just fun 2 hour experience. I just put on the live streams, sat in my living room, honestly, listened to it. I didn't take notes. I probably should have taken notes. I'm going to be doing this mainly just from my memory. So I certain details I certainly will have forgotten by now, or might not get 100% right. Um, Lisa Wilcox was another one in the cast, another friend of ours there. So Halloween Returns, one thing that I really liked right off the bat is that the film, it really just kind of jumps right in there and does a lot of what 2018 doesn't do, which is not playing on our classic characters. And what I mean is the film opens basically at the end of the events of the 78 film. But what you learn pretty early in this script is that it's not exactly the events of the 78 film as we know them. It's a slightly alternate universe version. In this version, a lot more people die than just the initial 3 or 4 that we know Michael killed initially in 78. So um, there's that, and the characters, the main characters of Laurie and Loomis, largely don't really play a factor in this story. The main characters of this story are the uh, the offspring of one is the offspring of Dr. Paul Rogers, who is in many ways this film's kind of Dr. Sam Loomis. And then the sheriff. Oh, by the way, this whole story takes place in Russellville. Other than that very quick opening scene, which kind of wraps up their version of 78. And we as viewers take it as it could almost be, or I took it as it could almost be like any of Michael's rampages. This is kind of the end of it. This is where we're picking up. And so it ends with him being apprehended. And then it picks up down the road in Russellville. And that's where this whole story takes place. Not in Haddonfield. Haddonfield's mentioned very briefly. Sheriff Brackett mentioned very briefly. But at the center of this story is Russellville Sheriff Gary Hunt. That's right. You know that name from Halloween 2. Again, though, it's not really like this is a continuation of Halloween 2. It's more like this is an alternate Halloween 2. In that way, it is kind of similar to 2018, but very different in the way it approaches all of this material, and really I kind of like it. It's just a very different take on it. It does use the Gary Hunt name and a few other names that are familiar. Interestingly, one of the main characters is Karen, and this is kind of this story's version of the Laurie Strode survivor. It's just interesting that her name is Karen, and then of course that name ended up being used so prominently in the recent trilogy, ultimately down the road. So the whole first third, or really the first half of the movie, is all on Halloween Eve, leading up to what is to be Michael Myers' execution. They're going to put him down, lethal injection, and they these kids, Gary Hunt's kid and Paul Rogers' daughter, they want to go and they want to see this happen. They want to experience this, and not out of some morbid thing. It's because they feel like he's done all this damage. They're not going to be all right. They're not going to be well. It's not even like they're doing it as like a party thing. They're doing it because the trauma, the damage they kind of needed. And it's all presented. Um, it's hard to describe because again you're dealing with characters that are new characters, but they're hitting all the marks of kind of what we have come to know and why they should be concerned about Michael. So of course things don't go right with the execution, obviously, and it's great that the script notes that Michael is unmasked, of course, but you never see his face, and that's a perfect note, and that's all they need to say. Is because again, a talented director, they're going to show you everything but his face. You'll see the silhouette, you'll see things covering, you'll see it blurred and out of focus. So yeah, Michael gets injected with this poison, and his body more or less just rejects it, and he won't die, and he's convulsing. Storm is raging outside. He makes eye contact with this young girl, and we know, okay, the chase is on, and before you know it, everything has gone up in flames. Maybe Michael's dead, maybe he's not. We know he's not, but it's Halloween now in Russellville, and he's out on the loose. These kids don't know what is going on. Paul Rogers and Gary Hunt know. They're trying to keep it contained, and Michael is out. This time in Russellville. And they've got all kinds of cool callbacks. One of my favorites is the Silver Shamrock store. And it's run by and presumably owned by Harry Grimbridge. I love all of this. Harry shows up. He opens up his store. When Harry shows up, by the way, he pulls up. He drives a van. It's an all black van with a giant jack o' lantern on it. They call it the Halloween van. Well, of course, Michael is waiting in the store. He takes out Harry, and then he goes ahead, and that's where he gets his mask because he's been unmasked this whole time. He gets his mask. It's Halloween. He's got to have it. He puts it on. It's right there in the store next to the iconic 3 silver shamrock masks. And that's where Michael finally puts his mask on in the store. They use the commercial in it as well. It's great. And then there's this really cool scene before Michael leaves the silver shamrock store that I really liked how it was described. It's our main characters, our final girl. She is picking up their friend. She's kind of looking into the store, into the Silver Shamrock store, and it's daytime, so everything's kind of reflecting, and you can't really see in. And Michael's there. He's like standing right there, looking at her, and she sees him, but he's wearing the mask and all. And she has a line of dialogue, something like, "Is that a costume or a man?" And of course, nobody else is really paying attention. She's the only one that really sees it, and they pull away. And we know it's Michael standing there. But just a really cool thing because I could totally see it in my head listening to them read it, and the fact that it's the Silver Shamrock store, a costume store, all these other masks. It would kind of look almost like a mannequin or an animatronic just standing there, the way Michael just would be standing there. So I thought that was really cool. Um, so I'm not going to go through every beat, but again, one of the coolest things, because we know Michael can drive. We saw this in the original film. We've seen it in H5. We've seen it before. So he drives quite a bit in this film. And after he takes out Harry at the Silver Shamrock store and takes his mask from the Silver Shamrock display, it's Harry's Halloween van that he's cruising around in. So Michael Myers is literally driving around in this all black van with a giant jack-o'-lantern on it, terrorizing Russellville on Halloween Day. I love that. And the script calls it the Halloween van. I think that's awesome. Um, some really cool kills, some classic Michael stuff, some nods to other films along the way. Nothing too overt because again, what I got from this, one of the things I got from this was very much it was a return, but it was also a relaunch, a rebirth, and an untethering. I felt to the mythology and the lore of any of the previous films. This was just saying, hey, we don't even have to be in Haddonfield necessarily. We can be in Russellville, which I think is a great idea. Let's move over there. Let's concentrate on that. Just to show that Michael's going to do his thing wherever, and he's found this new girl, and so he's chasing her, and there's a lot of just great set pieces that go on throughout this, and then everything kind of culminates that night. There's a party at the barn. Oh, and it's Farmer John's pumpkin patch. I love that because Farmer John, like John Carpenter, I thought that was a nice touch. A lot of action takes place there at the pumpkin patch. They end up doing a big party out there at the barn. And then the whole big kind of climax, final act of the film takes place there out amongst the corn rows and the cornfields. And the way it's described is just really awesome. How Michael kind of becomes almost one with autumn, with fall, all things fall, the pumpkin patch, the cornfields, the party in the barn, all kind of Easter eggy, but not too much, but really playing on Halloween itself and just the holiday and just the autumn of it all, the cornfields. I just thought that was such a cool place to have it all have a climax. And then, as everything wraps up, things end how you may imagine, more or less. Most people die, a few people survive. Michael is gone, but is he? Everything's quiet, but we know he's still out there somewhere. And then there is this final scene in the hospital, and our Paul Rogers is talking to his friend, and I couldn't do it. I failed. I couldn't stop him, Dr. Loomis. And it pans up, and it's this character, and he's wearing a black turtleneck and a trench coat, and it's Dr. Loomis. And in the script, they say he's Gary Oldman. Now, just that alone, like I never considered Gary Oldman to play Loomis, but hearing that now, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, duh. What? How were we all ever even considering anybody else? He'd be our perfect Loomis. Like even more so today than 10 years ago, I think. I think he's aged into it even more now, a decade later. I think he'd be the perfect Loomis. Are you kidding? Now, whether or not they would have ever been able to get him, who knows? Probably not. And in fact, when Marcus and Patrick came on and talked to Adam and Joe Lynch after the reading, they said that it was actually Jason Isaacs that they were kind of in serious talk about getting cast as their Loomis in that one little brief scene at the end. Which he's a great actor too, and he definitely could have pulled it off. But man, the fact that they saw Gary Oldman in that role, I'm like, okay, these guys do get it. And I remember 10 years ago thinking some of the stuff that they had coming out about this, like, okay, maybe they do get it. Maybe they do get it. And then there would have been one final scene after the credits, after all the studio logos, the very, very final thing Marcus said, and this wasn't even in the script, but he said in the interview portion of the live stream after, that it would have gone back and you'd see the barn there still burning, and the mask laying in the ground in the foreground, and then the Shape's hand would just come down, pick up the mask, and that's it. And then we're back up and running. If the powers that be were to want it, you've got Michael back and up and running. You've got your new Loomis right there, ready to go. You've got a couple new characters you can bring back if you want. It's definitely a cool way to experience that story for somebody that never, read a whole script and to have it brought to life in just a little bit in that way. I thought it was done really well and it was really fun. And again, I'm paraphrasing a lot and I'm cutting a lot out. Hopefully they'll make it available for everybody to watch or listen to at some point. Again, I know the script's out there. You can find it at different places. But my impression is, well, should they have made that movie? Well, I think it would have been great had they made it. I think it could have been a great movie. Now, whether or not it would have gotten the budget that the David Gordon Green Blumhouse did, I don't know. And I do think it would have kind of needed that budget to really pull it off as effectively as everything described in the script. But man, I think those guys had a good take on it. And certainly, when your mandate is, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis wants to come back, work with that. Well, then, that changes the whole dynamic and everything. And that, if that were to happen to them, it would have changed everything. So, but still, just a cool way to do it. And I do remember thinking at the time that that's kind of the only way to do it at that time, I thought, was to just have Michael doing Michael on Halloween. And yeah, just new kids, a new sheriff, a new town. And it's, other than that, it's the Shape doing the Shape. Shape shaping, and that's kind of what they gave us. But then they did build in enough of these cool Easter eggs and references to kind of work it in. But still definitely a remix, I feel like an alternate universe, which is what we've got throughout this franchise anyway, is tons of alternate timelines. So in any case, it was very entertaining and I liked it a lot. Now I turn it over to you guys. What do you think about the film that never was? One of many, of course, one of many scripts and ideas that were played with, but I don't know how many got as close as this one really did to going before the cameras. It's crazy how close it got. But let me know what you think in the comments.